Welcome, traveler. Tonight, you're a cartographer in the heart of Renaissance Venice, in the year 1573. Your world is one of parchment and ink, sea-salted winds, and whispered stories brought home by sun-worn sailors. You dwell above the canals, capturing distant lands on vellum by lamplight, giving form to the unknown. You rise before the bells of San Marco call out across the water. The pale blue of morning is just beginning to tug at the veil of darkness over the canals. You sit up in the small bed tucked beneath the wooden beams of your loft. The air is cool, and the faint scent of ink and old vellum rises from the table below. Already, the city murmurs softly. The groan of a barge rope, the flutter of a pigeon, the whisper of a gondolier's oar. You descend the stairs quietly, stepping into the warm hush of your workshop. It is a long, narrow room with wide windows that overlook the water, still as glass at this hour. The floor is tiled in cool terracotta. Your instruments are laid out precisely. Dividers, compasses, rulers, all waiting on the worn drafting table where maps become memory. The first task of the day is simple, meditative. You prepare the ink. A small mortar, some soot, a little water, a drop of wine for fluidity. You grind it slowly with a pestle, listening to the soft sound it makes, like distant rain. When it's ready, you pour it into a shallow well and stir with your finest brush. It must be thin as spider silk, yet dark as the Adriatic at midnight. Today, you're drawing coastlines. It begins with silence and breath. You sit, centered, brush poised. The parchment before you is creamy and soft-edged, stretched and pinned. With each movement of your hand, the edge of a distant world appears. You have never seen the shores of Tunis or the long fingers of the Aegean, yet you know them like your own pulse. You trace their shapes from charts, sketches, the faded notebooks of sailors who stumbled through fog and storm to bring back fragments of the world. Outside, Venice is waking. The morning light grows gold and then pale rose, spilling through the window and glinting off your brass tools. You pause to stretch. A boat drifts by, the gondolier nodding. You nod back, the brush still in your fingers. You work slowly, steadily. Precision is peace. The map must be truthful, but it is also beautiful. You add a compass rose, its petals reaching outward. You ink tiny waves along the sea routes, dots for safe harbors, a scattering of sea monsters where the world goes blank. These are not just embellishments. They are warnings, comforts, prayers in pigment. At midday, you take a break. You climb out onto the small stone balcony that juts from your workshop. A plate of olives and bread waits there, with a wedge of sheep's cheese and a flask of water cooled in the canal. You eat slowly, watching the light dance on the water. The bells ring again. A choir is practicing in a nearby chapel, and their voices float like silk over the rooftops. You think about the map, about the sailor who left it with you, sunburned and salt-rimed, with a trembling hand and eyes that had seen too far. He spoke of storms in the Ionian, of a lighthouse flickering at the edge of the known world, of islands where goats climbed trees and birds cried like children. You tried to see what he saw, and now you give it shape. The afternoon passes gently. You shade a mountain range. You outline a river delta in silver ink. You make a note in the margin, in your fine, slanted hand. Unverified coast, spoken of by fishermen. You are careful with such things. Your maps must not lie, but they may listen. You recall when you were apprenticed, still a boy, squinting over a curling atlas with the master behind you. He would murmur, not just where, but why. A good map is not a picture. It is a story. A breeze stirs the paper. You weight it with a smooth stone. It came from Rhodes, you think, or maybe Crete. You found it in the satchel of a shipwrecked cartographer who never made it home. His maps were ruined by sea. But one scrap survived. A sketch of a bay shaped like a bird in flight. You kept it. You drew it again. You still don't know where it is. By evening, your eyes are tired but content. You clean your brushes. You lay the finished parchment flat beneath muslin. You write a date in the corner. Anno Domini 1573. You light a lantern, though the twilight is still soft. The workshop glows amber. You make a final note in your journal, recording the day, A chart of the Dalmatian coast, a wind pattern corrected, a name misspelled and fixed. And then you sit in the chair by the window, where the cool night begins to press gently against the glass. The canals are quieter now, save for the soft creak of wood and the calling of night birds. You watch as a boat slips past, carrying fruit under canvas. You smell oranges. Somewhere someone is playing a lute. The notes drift like leaves. The city is a map too, you think. 1,000 corners, 1,000 voices, each with its own direction. You close your eyes. Sleep comes like a tide, slow and sure. Tomorrow, you will chart the northern coasts, but for now, you drift. The world narrows to this room, this chair, this breath, and all is quiet. The next morning breaks with a silvery mist curling over the canals, softening the sharp edges of stone and sky. You wake slowly, your breath forming faint clouds in the cool air. The light is diffused, and everything feels wrapped in quiet. You dress and descend into the workshop, where your previous map rests beneath muslin. Carefully, you unpin it and hang it on the wooden frame near the window. The ink has dried to a soft luster. You study it for a while, checking angles, comparing to your logbook notes. There is satisfaction in the work. It feels whole. But today's task is different. You are beginning a new commission, a naval chart for a trading vessel bound north toward Flanders. It must include the Ligurian coast, the ports of Marseille and Genoa, and safe passage routes that wind along treacherous capes and sheltered bays. You begin with the compass. The circle is perfect, each degree marked with precision. North is crowned with a fleur-de-lis. The rose glows faintly in the morning light. Then, using charcoal and a straight edge, you begin plotting grid lines, latitude and longitude, a scaffold for discovery. The work is more mathematical than yesterday's coastlines. You consult volumes of navigational data, copying figures, making notes in the margins. You sip cool tea steeped with rosemary. The herb clears your thoughts. As the sun climbs, the mist lifts. You hear the calls of fishmongers and the splash of water against hulls. A boy sells lemons from a skiff below your window. You buy 3 and place them in a shallow bowl. Their scent is bright and clean. The mid-morning hours pass in focused silence. You trace the Ligurian coastline, not from memory but from reckoning, degrees, minutes, knots. You refer to a map brought from a monastery near Florence, its margins filled with monastic script and tiny illuminated ships. You smile at the detail, a monk with a spyglass peering over the prow. At midday, you stop for a short walk. Crossing a small bridge, you visit your favorite papermaker on a nearby calle. He welcomes you with a nod and hands you 2 fresh sheets, their grain like river sand. You trade him a sealed letter, a small favor for a friend in Mantua. Returning, you breathe in deeply. The canal reflects the sky now, pure and blue. Back at your table, you stretch the new parchment. It will be for annotations, perhaps a secondary version. The idea excites you. The afternoon deepens. You mark depth lines, careful gradations in brown and gray. You pause to examine a mariner's diary, notes about reefs, wind behavior, the strange green flash that sometimes lights the sea at dusk. You mark it faintly on the chart. Sunfire seen. Outside, the day winds down. You light a taper and continue in the golden hush. The rhythm of the pen is steady. The map begins to breathe, to hold its own shape. By twilight, you complete the northern trade route and begin adding names. You write them slowly, reverently. Porto Venere, San Remo, Antibes. Each one a memory, even if not your own. Before you close the book, you consult a worn letter tucked behind a row of ledgers, notes from your cousin in Naples, warning of shifting sandbars and an altered coastline near Livorno. You sketch a faint correction, leaving room for doubt. Then, a knock at the door. A young captain enters, his boots damp, his coat rich with brine. He lays a bundle on your desk, a sheaf of notes, sea-stained and curling, tied with coarse twine. He speaks quietly, with urgency, of new currents off Corsica, of stars he could not name. You take the bundle gently. You nod. This too will shape the next chart. After he leaves, you unwrap the twine and spread the papers before you. Scribbled sketches, erratic soundings, sketches of a fish no one has seen. You feel the pulse of the world again, raw and wide and full of mystery. And with the last of the day's light, you begin a new layer. Another day of the unknown, captured by steady hand.